Hello, Home Slices. It's Kiera with Home Slice Adulting coming to you with my review for Iyanla Fix My Life, Season 6, Episode 21, I think, titled Pride and Prejudice Part 1. Before I get started, I want to say thank you for clicking on this video. Do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also to share this video with someone who you think will enjoy it. Now, let's just go ahead and get started, y'all. We see Miss Rita, who is a 52-year-old blonde-haired German woman, complaining about the status of her relationship with her black daughter-in-law. Now, because Iyanla is Iyanla, the wise woman that she is, she immediately points out the fact that there are some implications that go along with a white German person being married to a black person. So there's already some background and implications there. Ones that Miss Rita maybe, didn't want to acknowledge or wasn't ready to acknowledge. But anyways, Miss Rita wrote in, and it came off to me as if she wrote into Iyanla because she thought that Iyanla, being a wise black woman, could maybe talk some sense into Ramisha. Black woman to black woman. That's the way it came off to me without her saying that. And she came out very judgmental about the way that she's been keeping house. And to me, it's not much different than the classic mother-in-law, daughter-in-law conundrum, okay? Mother-in-laws, depending on who they are, people have a lot of problems with their in-laws, and a lot of time it's a mother-in-law being judgmental of the way a daughter-in-law is raising the children or keeping house, and the problem is, one of the things that Iyanla said to Miss Rita, and a problem that I feel that a lot of mother-in-laws have, is that you take the way that you were raised, you were brought up, the way you did things, and you make that the standard for the way that things should be. But you gotta realize that some like it hot, some like it cold, and some like it in the pot 9 days old, okay? People have different ways of doing things. Maybe she doesn't have time to keep up with 3 kids and the laundry and all that stuff. And maybe she just likes to do one really big deep clean once a month or whatever. Whatever it is that she's doing in her house is the way that she's doing it. So, just because you were raised one way doesn't mean that you get to force those standards on somebody else. And that's a problem. I mean, their upbringings apparently were very different, so they're going to be raised in different ways. But you let the person who's raising her children raise them the way that she wants them to be raised. If her kids aren't sick all the time or they're not killing each other and all that stuff, why are you tripping? Y'all, she's coming off as prejudiced to me, and I am ready for Iyanla to tell her about herself. So let's talk about the stones. So Iyanla's whole thing for this is that she is in a glass house and she's throwing stones. One of the stones she holds up has the word divorce on it. And y'all, basically what I heard Miss Rita say was that she would be okay if her son divorced Ramisha. She comes off as very passive aggressive. The example she gave about how the younger child has bruises was basically telling Ramisha, you don't watch your children enough. And it's like, okay, Ramisha can read in between the lines. Just because you are passive aggressive or have creative ways of saying things doesn't mean that she's not smart enough to hear and realize what you're actually saying. And I feel like she's kind of insulting Ramisha's intelligence. And, call me biased if you want, as a fellow black woman, and as someone who has had, pre-mother-in-law issues. I'm on Ramisha's side. I think it's problematic that since they are on Iyanla, if it's clear to me that Ramisha's husband, whose name I don't know just yet, Ramisha's husband hasn't really stood up for her properly to the point where his mom knows not to come at his wife like that. So, y'all, I'm rooting for Ramisha. I'm rooting for Iyanla to give Miss Rita the business and Ramisha's husband. All right, y'all. So Miss Rita finds out that she's living in a glass house for the first time in her 52 years. So we have Iyanla talking to her, still with the Stones, talking to her about mental health. Apparently, her father committed suicide because he was dealing with depression and other mental health issues. And like a lot of people, that hasn't really been dealt with. I don't know why we as people think that we can get away with traumatic things happening to us and then just like ignoring them and not dealing with them or not getting professional help, not talking to somebody. I don't know what it is in our human nature that makes us think that we can handle everything by avoiding it. It never works. So, anyways, she takes her over to these glass houses, and Iyanla demonstrates that everything that Miss Rita is talking about with regards to Ramisha is something that's a part of her own life. And she basically takes a rock and throws it at a glass house and is saying, you are throwing stones. You are throwing stones about her laundry, about the way she's raising her kids, and you don't have a pot to piss in when it comes to those particular things. You're not on good standing in those areas. So you being judgmental of Ramisha is just a reflection of who you are. And it's very clear to me that Rita does not know what she got herself into. That's number one. Also, Miss Rita did not think that she was a part of the problem. I think that's the biggest realization for me, is that Miss Rita thought that Miss Iyanla was going to sit down Ramisha and tell Ramisha, you need to take care of the kids, you need to do laundry, you need to clean the house, and you need to make sure that you're watching the kids. And that's not the way it works. Miss Rita, have you ever actually watched the show? Have you ever actually watched the show and seen how Miss Iyanla shows that there's plenty of blame to go around, and Miss Rita's going to get her fair share, okay? So for the first time, we see Iyanla sit down with Ramisha, beautiful black woman, very well spoken. Look, she is very clear about what the problem is. She believes that that Miss Rita wanted her husband to have married someone from a better stock, her words, not mine, someone who was a Stepford wife, who would basically do her bidding, someone who would not talk back, someone who would not have their own opinion, someone who would embrace her culture without questioning it, and I don't know. That's a big problem. The thing about being in an interracial relationship, or any type of like transcultural relationship, whether you're from different religions, different races, different parts of the country, different countries, whatever those different aspects are, is that when you come together and you're married and you're raising children, I think the best part of having those different cultures is that your children get to learn about both of them. And so they're learning from their dad about their German culture, and then learning from their mom about their black culture. And then it's the coming together of that makes it so nice and so beautiful. And the thing is, you can't ask somebody to deny their culture just so you can feel better about the way they're keeping house, or the way they're raising their children. The kids have a right to know and understand and experience their black culture just as much as their German culture. So Y'all, we about to talk to Christian, who is Ramisha's husband and Rita's son, and we'll see what's going on with him and why he hasn't nipped this problem in the bud sooner. All right, so now we're talking to Christian and Ramisha, and this is the first time that we're seeing Christian, and we learned that he is 36. Now, as soon as I saw his age, I was like, whoa, okay, so Rita, remember, is 52. If he is 36, she was 15 or 16 when he was born. So you have this 16-year-old single mother raising a son by herself, and now she's passing judgment on Ramisha. Yeah, she's definitely in a glass house. So things are just coming, things are coming full circle for me, from my perspective, okay? So we see Christian. We see that he like something about him. He does have, I guess, a gentler spirit. He's, I don't know. I like him, okay? He seems like he's not the most aggressive or firm person. He said it took him a long time to realize that his mom was controlling. And one of the things I've heard said in a different context was that for some people, being a parent is all the power that they will ever have, really. They don't really have power in their careers, relationships, or, workplaces, other places in their lives. And so they exert the most control over their children. And that might be the case here. The fact that she's trying to control a grown man who seems capable, just something about him I really like. And he was saying that they have tried to draw boundaries, but they haven't been received well. And Iyanla was like, well, that's because you all don't enforce those boundaries. When she steps over the line, what's the consequence of that? There are no consequences, okay? And the consequences that you all come up with create deeper issues, like withholding the children from her. So they need to figure out how not only to firmly establish the boundaries, but to establish what happens when those boundaries are inevitably crossed, because Miss Rita looks like a boundary crosser, okay? And so Iyanla says that Miss Rita has made Christian her emotional husband. That makes a lot of sense. That happens all the time when it comes to single parents, single mothers in particular, raising their sons. When they're with you for so long, there's this level of elevation that your child kind of becomes more than your child. And he said, he's never heard that before, but that would explain a lot of the ways that she's been acting. And we get to this point where Iyanla says, there's some stuff going on between him and his mother that don't have nothing to do with you, Ramisha. And yeah, that's something that I kind of wasn't expecting. It definitely makes a lot of sense, but that kind of wasn't on my radar. And that Christian and Miss Rita have to get things cleared up. And once they do, things will probably get better between her and Ramisha. So I think Iyanla, made a lot of sense when she said that. But then we get to the point where he says, he was raised by a single parent. So he was 6 years old. He went to the park, and he apparently was molested by a man who claimed he wanted to show him a turtle. And it's like how dare I? For me, it's like, Miss Rita, how dare you? And that's what living in a glass house is all about. How dare you say something to me about my children when your house is made of glass? I can see straight through it. He said, the thing that he said was, when I grew up, I was alone so much, and he was taken advantage of. Now, To be fair, his mom doesn't know about this. If I watched the previews correctly, his mom does not know about this. But for her to be upset that the younger baby has bruises on him because the 6 year old is watching him or whatever, like there's stuff going on that she doesn't even know about. She's talking about the way she's raising her children. Okay, when you raised your son and you had to work, who watched your babies? I mean, y'all, I I have like the lowest tolerance and the lowest patience for people who rape people, people who sexually assault or molest people, and then my tolerance is even lower for people who do it to children, to poor defenseless children. I just hate it. I can't deal with it. And when you have that type of trauma and you don't deal with it, of course it's going to show up in your life in other ways. And so y'all, let's just see what happens next. All right, y'all, so we are back. Iyanla is still talking to Christian and Ramisha regarding the childhood trauma that happened to him, and apparently he has not healed from it, and he wonders about how it has impacted him. And he said something that sounded very much like a 6-year-old. Like, if I told them what happened to me, would they still love me? That's the way that it comes across. And that it had a lasting impact on the way that he's non-confrontational and how he lacks self-confidence. And Iyanla says, we got to clear this up with your mom. Because even though your mom knows, it was her responsibility to take care of you at 6 years old. And unfortunately, he's still dealing with the aftermath and the effects of what happened to him at 6. And Iyanla is like, that's your mom's responsibility to help take care of. So Iyanla gives them the letter of all of the things that she had wrote up to Iyanla regarding their relationship and her problems with Ramisha. So next we see Miss Ramisha's mom, who is 46. Y'all, I don't remember how old Ramisha is, but her mom is 46. Both of these women are young mothers, okay? So, is it LaShonda? Ramisha's mother is talking to Iyanla, and LaShonda is saying that she was a single parent who worked 3 jobs to make sure that her kids had everything they needed. She said that when her children were like 10, 11, and 12, she had a little substance abuse problem, and the children stayed with their grandmother. And according to Iyanla, something that Miss Rita said to Ramisha was, I can't imagine what your childhood was like, with a mother that wasn't available or loving or attentive, or what happened to you or what your surroundings were like. And it's like, are you serious? Your son just told us that he was alone so much as a child, and you were a single parent for 9 years, from 16 to 25. How attentive and available and loving could you have been to your son working as a single parent? All single parents have that issue with trying to balance providing for their families and taking care of their children as well. And once again, a situation where she is in a glass house and throwing rocks, okay? And one of the things that Iyanla brought up again was that Christian is Miss Rita's, excuse me, y'all. Christian is Miss Rita's emotional husband. And Miss LaShonda is like, that actually makes sense. And Iyanla said, in Miss Rita's eyes, Ramisha is the side chick, and Christian is and Miss Rita is the main chick, emotionally. And I was like, dang. Iyanla has this situation pegged, okay? So that's where we are right now, y'all. And we about to have a conversation with Miss Rita and Miss LaShonda, and we'll see how that goes. Hey, y'all. To my dog being nosy. Say hey, bro. Oh, yeah. All right, y'all. So we are back. Iyanla is chatting with Miss Rita now. And y'all, Miss Rita really does not think that she is the problem. Um, Iyanla is trying to show her that everyone has some responsibility in the breakdown of their relationship. And I think Miss Rita is the biggest culprit. And the problem is she doesn't think that she's the culprit at all. And so she took the stones that had all of those, things on them like divorce and all that type of stuff. Um, and wrote positive things on the other side regarding what she wants to see out of this whole situation. Um, Oh, well, I think it's interesting that she took that type of initiative. Iyanla asked her, well, what about what everybody else wants? Like, it's not just about her getting what she wants or needs from this whole process. It's about everybody. And her thinking about her own needs is, I guess, what got them into this situation in the first place. And so Iyanla gives her an assignment. So next we see Iyanla sit down to chat with Christian and Ramisha. Such a big baby. Oh, look at him. She sits down to talk with Christian and Ramisha after giving them an opportunity to read the letter that Miss Rita wrote to her. And so, let me get this. There we go. So, she asked them how they felt about it, and they kind of had a weird reaction. Ramisha thought it was funny, and then Christian wasn't surprised, basically. And she was saying, yo, this is violent. Like, and that's the same thing she said to Miss Rita. This is passive aggressive violence, which is interesting and kind of a contradiction within itself, because when you think of somebody being passive, it's like the opposite of them being violent. But passive aggressive violence, I totally get that. So you all know that I moved up to the Pacific Northwest, in the Seattle area. And if y'all didn't know, people in the Pacific Northwest are notorious for being passive aggressive. And so I totally understand that. I totally get where they're coming from. It's very annoying. I mean, I think we all have instances and times where we can be passive aggressive, but I do my best to not do that. I think there's something beautiful and wonderful about being direct, about telling people how you feel and standing in it and having emotional integrity. Being passive aggressive to me feels like dishonesty. You're saying one thing, but you're actually feeling and experiencing another. So, for me, I'm not a big fan of passive aggressive stuff, and I'm actively trying to make sure that I don't do that to other people, because there's something wonderful about just knowing where you stand. Like, if someone's being passive aggressive to you, they're showing you one thing and feeling another, and because they have this dishonesty, you never know where you actually stand with them. And if you are direct with people, you have the ability to know where you stand, whether they like you, dislike you, if y'all are on good footing or bad footing. The point is that you know where you are. And yeah, I think people should be more direct with each other. But yeah, it's passive aggressive violence, all the stuff that she wrote in the letter. And Iyanla said something else that I kind of hadn't thought of, because when we have situations like these where one person is so clearly wrong, a lot of times we can kind of paint them out to be like a villain and not really consider like where this is coming from. And Iyanla said, what depth of pain is this woman going through to have written something like this? And I had never really considered what maybe Miss Rita has gone through and dealt with that has made her into the person that she is today. So maybe we'll find that out. All right, y'all. It is apparent to me that Miss Rita didn't come on this show to be healed. Miss Rita came to be right, okay? And when you come to be right, and when you come to be vindicated in the fact that you are right, you don't really get what you came for, because everyone has a responsibility and some blame when it comes to certain relationships. The relationships that you are in, you have a part in the way that they are. And I don't think that Miss Rita was expecting, or I know for sure she was not expecting to be found out as the problem and the discord and the breakdown between all of them, when she very clearly is the problem. So we sit down with Miss Rita, Miss LaShonda, and Iyanla, and they all sit down to have a conversation about, what happened yesterday, and what were your reflections and your thoughts, and did you do your homework? And y'all, Miss Iyanla, Iyanla is getting Miss Rita together very quickly about how she doesn't answer the question, and how she jumps to conclusions, and about how she doesn't follow instructions. And Iyanla was like, okay, you did that with the stones. When I told you that this is what the stone represents, you took it upon yourself to flip it over and turn it into something else when that wasn't the instructions. And we asked you if you ever approach Miss LaShonda about doing things together, and how often you see each other, and your response was, our lifestyles aren't the same. She likes to go to the hair salon and I like to ride my horses. Y'all, if that ain't judgmental, she's literally on a high horse in the scenario. She talked about being on her high horse while Miss LaShonda was at the hair salon, okay? So she did not answer the question properly, and she was like, well, I didn't realize that they were preset answers. If it's a yes or no question, then the preset answers are like yes and no, right? And if somebody asks you how often you do something, obviously it's supposed to have like a time frame, like twice a year or whatever. And finally she answered the question, and it's like, instead of answering the question, you made a judgment, and you do that all the time. You are judgmental. You use your standard of how you live your life to measure against everybody else's, and it does not work that way, because again, some like it hot and some like it cold. Everybody has their own way of doing things, okay? So y'all, Miss Rita was not expecting to get her life served to her today, okay? She said that she was surprised that, the issue was between her and her son. She was also surprised that she was called violent. And Iyanla was like, well, what do you think this is? Whenever you show up in their lives, whenever you interact with them, this is the stuff that you are harboring in your heart. How can it not be violent if this is the stuff that's going on inside of you, and it's informing all of your interactions with Ramisha? And Iyanla was just getting her together, thank goodness. And Iyanla was like, you want to get to the real root of the issue? You are an adult bully. Miss Rita, Miss Rita, I don't know. Iyanla said something in, like, when they show the preview for the upcoming episode for part 2. Excuse me, y'all. Iyanla says, the lights are on and no one's home. Yeah. Okay, for her to be that shocked, she really was not counting on being held accountable for her part in the breakdown in the relationship. And Iyanla just flat out told her, I don't know that maybe she has told this to people before, but she just flat out told Miss Rita, you are the problem. You are the problem in this relationship. Everybody else seemed to be kind of cool. But you are creating an issue in these relationships. And y'all, I spoke about this a few episodes ago in one of my previous reviews about how Iyanla needed to do things a little bit differently, because it felt like we were hearing the same stories over and over again. And while, if I'm correct, this is the second story or second episode this season that has dealt with in-laws and problematic in-laws, because there was the one with the lesbian couple and they had a in-law issue. this particular episode feels new. There's something about this particular episode. Maybe it's because they're an interracial couple that has cultural differences or whatever it is. I am thoroughly enjoying this series and can't wait for part 2. So thank you all for watching. Do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And tell someone you know. Forward this to them if you think they like it. Peace out, home slices.